Prologue: The Boy at the Gate. The palace gates of Jerusalem towered above the boy like a mountain of bronze. Sunlight glinted off the metalwork, casting long shadows across the courtyard. 12-year-old Ammiel, son of a humble scribe, clutched a scroll to his chest as if it were a shield. He had been summoned, not by a guard, not by a commander, but by King David himself. Ammiel's heart hammered in his chest. He had never been inside the palace. He had only heard stories of the golden lampstands, the cedar walls, the hush that fell whenever the king entered a room. And the rules. Endless rules. He swallowed hard. A guard stepped forward, spear in hand. "State your name and purpose." Ammiel's voice cracked. "Ammiel, son of Mutton. I was summoned by the king." The guard's eyes narrowed. "A child? Summoned by the king?" Ammiel held out the scroll. The guard unrolled it, scanned the seal, and stiffened. "Follow me." The gates opened. Ammiel stepped inside, and his life changed forever. Chapter 1. The Throne Room. The throne room was nothing like Ammiel imagined. It wasn't loud or bustling. It was quiet, reverently quiet, as though the very stones held their breath. Cedar beams arched overhead. Sunlight streamed through high windows, catching dust motes that danced like tiny stars. The air smelled of incense and polished wood. And there, at the far end, seated on a throne of carved wood and gold, was King David. He was older than the story said. His beard streaked with silver, his eyes lined with years of battle and burden. But his presence, steady, commanding, alive, filled the room like a storm waiting to break. Ammiel froze. A palace attendant whispered urgently, "Bow, child." Ammiel dropped to his knees so fast he nearly toppled forward. "Rise," David said, his voice warm but firm. Ammiel stood, trembling. David studied him for a long moment. "You are the son of Mutton the scribe?" "Yes, my lord. I have read your father's work. His records are precise. His hand is steady." David leaned forward. "Tell me, boy, is your hand steady?" Ammiel blinked. "I think so, my lord." A smile tugged at the corner of David's mouth. "Honest. Good." He gestured to a table beside the throne. "Come." Ammiel approached, each step echoing through the chamber. On the table lay a parchment, a draft of a royal decree. The ink was smudged in places, the lines uneven. David tapped the parchment. This was written by a man who has forgotten that the king's words must be carried with honor. A decree is not merely ink. It is the breath of the kingdom. He looked at Ammiel. "I need a new scribe's apprentice. Someone young. Someone teachable. Someone who fears God more than he fears me." Ammiel's breath caught. "My lord, I am only a boy." David's eyes softened. "So was I once." He placed a hand on Ammiel's shoulder. "You will learn the ways of the palace, the protocols, the weight of the crown, and you will learn what it means to walk before God with integrity." Ammiel felt his knees weaken. "Do you accept?" Ammiel bowed deeply. "I do, my king." David nodded. "Then your training begins at dawn." Chapter 2. The Rules of the Palace. Ammiel learned quickly that the palace was a world governed by protocol, a choreography of respect, order, and discipline. His instructor was Benaiah, commander of the king's guard. A man carved from stone, with eyes sharp as flint. The palace, Benaiah barked on the first morning, is not a marketplace. It is not a field. It is the heart of the kingdom, and the heart must beat with order. He paced before the trainees, a handful of young servants, scribes, and attendants. Rule 1. Never approach the king unannounced. Rule 2. Never turn your back on the king unless dismissed. Rule 3. When the king stands, you stand. Rule 4. When the king prays, you kneel. Rule 5. When the king speaks, you listen. Ammiel repeated each rule silently, committing them to memory. But Benaiah wasn't finished. Rule 6. The king is God's anointed. Honor him, not because he is perfect, but because God placed him where he stands. Ammiel felt those words settle deep in his chest. Later that day, he followed the senior scribes into the Hall of Records. Scrolls lined the walls from floor to ceiling, genealogies, decrees, battle accounts, psalms, treaties. Master scribe Elahoreph handed Ammiel a quill. "Your task," he said, "is not to write quickly. It is to write faithfully. A careless scribe can destroy a kingdom." Ammiel swallowed hard. He dipped the quill in ink. His hand trembled. Elahoreph placed a steadying hand over his. "Courage, boy. Even the king's hand trembles when he writes before God." Ammiel exhaled slowly and began. Chapter 3. The King's Burden. Weeks passed. Ammiel grew accustomed to palace life. The early mornings, the disciplined silence, the constant awareness of rank and order. But nothing prepared him for the day he witnessed the king alone. It was late evening. Ammiel had been sent to deliver a scroll to the king's private chamber. He hesitated at the door. Protocol forbade entering without permission. He knocked softly. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. He turned to leave, but then he heard it. A voice. Not speaking. Crying. Ammiel froze. He knew he should walk away, but something pulled him back. He pushed the door open a crack. Inside, King David knelt on the floor, his face buried in his hands. "Lord," David whispered, voice breaking, "teach me to shepherd your people. Keep me from pride. Keep me from the snares of my own heart." Ammiel's breath caught. This was not the warrior who slew giants. Not the king who commanded armies. Not the ruler who sat on a throne of gold. This was a man, fragile, desperate, clinging to God. Ammiel stepped back, closing the door silently. For the first time, he understood. The weight of the crown was heavier than any armor. Chapter 4. The Approach. A month later, a crisis shook the palace. A delegation from the northern tribes arrived unexpectedly, demanding an audience with the king. Their leader, a stern man named Hananel, strode into the throne room without bowing. Gasps rippled through the court. Benaiah's hand flew to his sword. Ammiel's heart pounded. Rule 1. Never approach the king unannounced, had been shattered. David raised a hand. "Let him speak." Hananel glared. "My king, our borders are threatened. Raiders from the east have burned our fields. We sent word weeks ago. No help came." David's expression tightened. "I received no such message." Hananel threw a scroll at the floor. "Then your messengers are liars." The court erupted in outrage. But David remained still. He descended from the throne, a breach of protocol so shocking that even Benaiah stiffened. David approached Hananel slowly. "Look at me," he said. Hananel hesitated. David's voice softened. "You are angry and afraid. A king does not despise a man who speaks from fear." Hananel's shoulders sagged. David placed a hand on his arm. "You did not approach me rightly, but you approached me honestly. And honesty, though rough, is better than flattery." He turned to Benaiah. "Send riders to the eastern border. Tonight." Benaiah bowed. "Yes, my king." David faced Hananel again. "Next time, come with respect. But come." Ammiel felt chills. This was how a king ruled. With strength. With mercy. With wisdom. With God.